Hey guys, thank you for watching this video. This is actually our first video on the awesome genomic wellness test that I did with Elaine Bracefield, who's a nutritionist based out of just down from Green Lane. Do they call this Penrose?
Sort of, yeah. Ellerslie, Penrose area.
Penrose.
Opti Health is the clinic I work at currently.
Opti Health, fantastic. So we're going to do this as our first video. We've been practicing with these videos. Some have been better than others. We've learned a few lessons, but what we've decided is this test that we did around genes is just so large. There's just so much cool information that we can't get it all into one or two videos. We're going to need to break it down into kind of core areas. And things that I learned. The reason we wanted to do this series of videos is just to give you a taste of what you can learn about yourself and how that can affect your day-to-day life. So the first thing we wanted to touch on is something that's very key to a lot of Kiwis and people overseas, I presume, which is the omega-3 and omega-6 blood levels. Something that I found out very importantly are not always in my favor for myself personally. So what I thought we'd touch on initially is kind of looking at kind of the support definitions, so you guys have an idea of what we're talking about. Maybe you could go through this one, Elaine.
Sure. So when you see the throughout the report, you'll see like a green dot, a yellow dot, or a red dot. So essentially, this indicates whether or not you have any mutations. So if you've got a green dot, it means you don't have any of the risk alleles, which are mutations for a gene. The yellow dot means you may have one risk allele, which puts you at a moderate risk of maybe increased blood cholesterol levels. And if you have a red dot, that means that you're at high risk because you've received two of the mutations. So essentially for each gene you have in your body, you receive one allele, which is one copy from your mother and one from your father. So that's where these come from, the balance of those two.
Fantastic. No, so that's really good to know. So yeah, so some people are very mutated, other people aren't mutants, basically.
Well, everybody has got their unique mutations, and that's what makes people who they are. It's just a matter of understanding your DNA and working with it to make yourself the best version you can be, and that's what this testing really enables people to do. Awesome.
Now, and this is what I've learned. Some of the stuff I've learned from this is amazing. Keep an eye on all the videos we're doing because they're all worthwhile. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump into these genes. I'm gonna ask Elaine to pick out which ones she wants to speak about because I'm just kind of the sidekick on this one. She is the leader. And so so this is the first one we're going to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, so ApoE3 is his genotype, and for most of us that is the most common genotype for lipid metabolism. So E3 puts him into the category of about 55% of the population. So you're pretty average.
Still good. I always thought I was average. It's good to see.
Sorry, Stephen. But anyway, so essentially E3 people, they really suit the Mediterranean diet, and they do well with olive oil, lots of fish, and they can have red wine. There is other categories, E2, and these are the super people. They can eat as much fat as they like, and their cholesterol levels aren't going to be too bad. Whereas if you're E4, which is the other subcategory, about 20 to 30% population have this, you have to be really careful about what you're eating, and particularly your fat intake, because you have genetically high cholesterol levels. So it's lucky for Stephen that he's not in the elevated cholesterol range, so he's got the green light.
So not below average or above average. How sad.
Yeah, it's okay.
Let me off. That's good. Yeah, so that you may have seen my posts around red wine. I'm definitely practicing heavily on trying to drink more red wine. Definitely doing my best.
You probably don't need to go too heavy, mate. Just 1 or 2 glasses a day, and that's the beneficial range.
We'll try and work down to that level. And yeah, so the other thing I found out very interesting about this is I have in the past tried things like the Atkins diet and similar things, which may taste really good, but don't quite work with my blood type. Not my blood type, my gene type, or my blood type probably. So it's very important to know this. So I've brought a lot of salmon into my diet because of this. A bit of red wine, and kind of understanding that I can have some grains is also important as well, which is really cool. So next on the list of cool genes to talk about.
Okay, so ApoA1, as we see here, this is related to your polyunsaturated fat intake, which omega-6 and omega-3 are both polyunsaturated fats. Now this ApoA1 gene determines how your body processes polyunsaturated fats. So what we're seeing here for Stephen's genotype, which he's received 2 of the risk alleles, the GG, which should normally be AA. So he unfortunately has lower good cholesterol levels when his polyunsaturated fat intake gets too high. So in particular, the thing you want to watch out for with your PUFAs, which is you get from nuts, seed oils like canola oil, soybean oil, and fish oil, obviously, is that if you have this genotype, you want to make sure that you're not consuming too much fat of that form. So, and in particular, making sure that when you are consuming polyunsaturated fats, they're more on the omega-3 side. So the fish oils and flax seeds and chias, which are plant sources of omega-3.
Fantastic. And you were telling me a really, really great story, and you maybe have been holding this back for another gene, but a story around omega-6 versus omega-3 in the kind of the European or especially the New Zealand diet.
Yeah, so what we see in typical Kiwi diets is there's a high ratio of omega-6 in comparison to omega-3. Now, what's ideal is that they should be equal, so a 1-to-1 ratio. For every omega-3 you take, you get an omega-6. And that promotes good heart health, it prevents disease. But what we're seeing in today's processed diets we're eating, and high levels of meat consumption, a lot of vegetable oils like soybean oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, these are all very, very high in omega-6. So you'll be shocked at the ratio that the typical Kiwi is consuming. It's a ratio of 16 omega-6 to 1 omega-3.
Crazy, eh?
And this is very inflammatory in the body, so it increases your risk of heart disease, even cancer. So really it's very important for people to look at their omega-6 intake and balance it with the appropriate levels of omega-3. So really making sure you're eating enough fish is the best thing you could do to increase your omega-3 intake.
Okay, fantastic. It's amazing. And this is kind of for everybody, is think about that as you're going forward. Very important, because likely, even if you don't have bad genes in this case, and some people will, it's important to make sure you are checking your omega-3 intake. It's not just a bunch of pills you have. You got to be smart about it. Like we're having this conversation at the moment around the amazing tasting fish oil that I now take.
Yeah, so unfortunately, a lot of the fish oil supplement in the supermarket, the capsulated ones, you have to be very careful because these fish oils are very often not stored properly, and a fish oil is very sensitive to temperature and it goes off. So if you're going to buy fish oil from the supermarket, make sure it's a liquid form and it's been refrigerated and it's a good quality brand which you get in the health store, not the supermarket.
Fantastic. And they taste amazing. Just so amazing. I'll leave that for you guys to discover in your own time. Be very careful with flavors because they can be very differing. So the next on our list is, so we're going to just come down. So there's a lot.
NOS3. We should
NOS,
have a look at that one there. Yeah.
Perfect. NOS3. That sounds great. So just so you can see going through, there's so many different cells that are looked at, and I just wanted to. We're only touching on a few of them. Keep an eye out for the other videos for the rest.
So essentially, what we're seeing here is that Stephen does have one of the risk alleles for the NOS3 gene. Now, this means that he has an increased requirement for omega-3 in his diet because he's genetically prone to being deficient in omega-3. So, essentially, if he's not getting enough omega-3, this increases his blood fat levels. So, this also increases his risk of high blood pressure and ultimately heart disease. So, therefore, for Stephen, it's particularly important that he optimize his omega-3 intake because the good thing is about this gene, it's easily corrected if you do have a mutation. All you need to do is supplement or eat more fish, and you actually, the research shows that people who do that, their risk of heart disease is actually better than the general population once they've made those changes. So now that Stephen's made these changes, he's not going to have increased risk of heart disease. So that's good.
That's very good. And next.
ApoA5, as we see here for these two genes, he's got the green light in both of them, so that's very fortunate. Which, if you do have a mutation in either of these genes, however, you do have an increased sensitivity to your omega-6, omega-3 ratio. So if you do have that, you have to be even more careful about how much omega-6 you're having in comparison to omega-3. So
So for those two, if you actually were, say, the red one, I'm not a mutant with these two guys, not a mutant. So with these two, if you made the change, would you notice a bigger effect probably?
Yeah, you'd notice even greater effect on your health, but also your risk of heart disease, because these genes are both involved in fat metabolism. Okay, and if you do have mutations, you'll have naturally higher levels of the bad fats in your bloodstream, which you don't want.
That's awesome. That's good to know. So let's dive down. I think it's the last one on our list.
This one here is the FAT-S1, and Stephen does have one of the risk alleles for this gene, and essentially it also means, once again, he's naturally low in blood levels of arachidonic acid and eicosapentaenoic acid. Sorry about that.
Say that.
EPA. But yeah, anyway, those are your omega-3s and omega-6s. So he has a high requirement for both those fats.
So it basically says get it sorted now.
Get it sorted now, essentially. But he's been doing that, and what have you noticed since you've implemented these changes?
Oh, I've definitely noticed that I am feeling better. Of all the things we've done, this has definitely been probably the most noticeable. And I've also noticed that I feel like I'm I know this sounds weird, but naturally losing weight. Like as I say, we always have. I can't say I'm always perfect. I don't believe anybody is, but I've noticed ever since upping my 3 and 6 intake, it seems to have had a positive effect across the board on getting fitter. Or that's what I feel. So yeah, it's been a massive change, really noticeable. And it could, I guess, would you say that if you realize some of these changes, this is just one of many, that it could actually probably get a few people who are watching this over that plateau they might be experiencing in weight loss potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. When you know exactly what your body needs to improve its metabolic function, and you eat to what your body requires genetically, you can really switch on the good genes, which promote the fat burning and promote greater energy production, better cholesterol levels, and better cholesterol levels means better hormone levels means better everything. So
that's all we're after, better hormone levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hormone happiness. Anyway, with regards to this stuff, so this is giving you a bit of an idea about the omega-3 and a 6 that you can get out of this test and what it's kind of meant for me. If you are considering any of this, have a chat with Elaine. You'll find her details on the page where this is, or on the YouTube clip. But just make sure that you do consider this. This is like a roadmap to success, and I can see how much it's changed my life. It can definitely do something similar for you. She's able to do this throughout New Zealand, so just get in touch. She's very friendly, not scary at all. I promise you, she's not a doctor. She's not a scary doctor. So keep that in mind and make sure you get this test done. But thank you so much for being on this video today, Elaine.
Thank you, Stephen.